We continue now at the top of Daf Chav Amud Beis in Meseches Kiddushin. This is Kiddushin Daf 29b. On the previous summer, there was a machlokes. Let's say you have a situation where the person himself has not yet been redeemed. He's a bechor, and he also has to redeem his son. So who takes precedence? The Tanakama said that he takes precedence, and Rabbi Yehuda said that his son takes precedence. And the Gemara now explains the machlokes. Kol heicha deleko el chamesh sloim. In a situation where there's only 5 sloim available, meaning he only has 5 selah to redeem one of them, so everybody agrees who kodem livno. Everybody agrees that he comes before his son. My time, and what's the reason? Mitzvah degufei adifa, because the mitzvah that's on his own body, that takes precedence. Ki pligi, when do they argue? Heicha deika chamesh mishubadim v'chamesh b'nei chorin. The case is, let's say you have a situation where 5 of the selah are mishubadim, and 5 of them are b'nei chorin, 5 of them are free. And the Gemara explains the machlokus. Rabbi Yehuda holds milve dechsiv b'Torah. If you have a loan or an obligation that's written in the Torah, like the obligation to redeem the bechor, kechsuva b'shtar damya, that's as if it's written in a shtar, and therefore you can collect from the chasim mishubadim. So bahani chamesh parak livrei v'yazal kohen v'taref le l'chamesh mishubadim lididei. So with those 5 that he has available to him, meaning the father actually has 5 sloim free, so that he uses to redeem his son. And then the Kohen goes along and he can collect from the Nechasim Meshubadim, meaning let's say there were 5 selah that were sold to somebody else, the purchaser has it, but that's something that's as if it was written in a shtar. The Kohen has the ability to collect it even from the Nechasim Meshubadim, and so the Kohen will collect from the other individual. That's as far as the obligation to redeem himself. The Rabbanan Sabri, but the Rabbanan say, Milva dechsib b'oraisa lav kechsuva b'shtar damin. When you have an obligation that's written in the Torah, like the redemption of the Bechor, that's not like it's written in a shtar. It's impossible to collect from the Chasim Mishubadim entirely. The only thing that can be used is the 5 sloim that he actually has with him, v'hilkach, and therefore a mitzvah degufei adif. The one that takes precedence is the mitzvah with his own body, and therefore he takes precedence over his son. And Rashi explains, Kichsuva b'shtar damya, again, the obligation of Pidyon Bechor, it's as if it's written in a shtar because it's written in the Torah. Uve Pidyon Atzmo hayemechuyev kodem shashibit karka osav. The point over here is, the redemption of himself, that obligation took place before he ever gave his land to anybody else, before he sold away his land, and so therefore there's a lien on all of his property. V'yitrof es alakuchos, and so therefore it's possible to collect that obligation from the lakuchos. That's why the obligation to redeem himself is something that the Kohen can collect from property with the lien from the lakuchos. Hilkach b'chamesh b'nei chori, therefore with it the 5 selah that are free, that the person actually has, the ika that are around, that are available, parak livrei, he uses that to redeem his son. De'in ze onah sharei mitzvahs b'no olav yoser mi-mitzvasa. Now that's not considered to be onah, because the mitzvah on his son is more upon him than his own mitzvah, and so therefore he's able to redeem his son with that free money. V'yazal kohen v'taraf lakuchos al pidyon atzmo, and then the Kohen goes along and he collects from those who purchased for his own redemption, because again, that's something that can be collected, that's an obligation that can be collected from property with a lien. But the Rabbanan hold lav kichsuva b'shtar dami, it's not considered like it's written in a shtar at all. Ve'eno govim mishubadim, it's not possible at all to collect from the chasim mishubadim, and so therefore the obligation of his own body, that takes precedence. And when Rashi mentions that if he uses the 5 free selah in order to redeem his son, de'ein ze onah, that's not considered to be onah, the Bach explains, de'ein ze onah l'lekuchos, that's not considered to be onah to the lekuchos. Because you might say that the lekuchos are going to say, why is it fair that he's going to use the 5 free sloim to redeem his son, and now it's possible for the Kohen to take the property for us? Maybe he should use the 5 free sloim to redeem himself, and then there will be no need for anyone to come to us to take from this property the nechasim mishubadim. And so Rashi explains that's not an issue, because the mitzvah to redeem his son, that's primary upon him more than his own mitzvah, and so therefore since it's a primary obligation upon him to redeem his son, he is allowed to use the 5 free selah to redeem his son, and therefore the Kohen is allowed to go to the lekuchos and collect from them in order to collect for the redemption of the person of the father himself. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, and this is from the Tosefta, Liftos es beno v'lalos l'regel. Let's say a person has the funds, he can either choose to redeem his son, or he can do aliyah l'regel, he can go up to the Beis HaMikdash for the holiday. Poda es beno v'yachar kach ola l'regel. What comes first is the Pidyon Haben, and afterwards he can do aliyah l'regel. The Pidyon Haben takes precedence. Rabbi Yehuda says the opposite. Ola l'regel v'achar kach podes beno. First he should do the mitzvah of aliyah l'regel, and after that he can redeem his son. Shazu mitzvah overis, because this is a mitzvah that's going to pass by. There's not going to be another opportunity to do it in terms of aliyah l'regel. V'zu mitzvah she'eino overis, but when it comes to the pidyon haben, that's something that doesn't have to be done right now. It doesn't have to be done right away. It can be done later. And the Gemara says, Bishlam al Rabbi Yehuda, I understand according to Rabbi Yehuda, K'tukamar Taima, he gives his reason. El Rabbanan my Taimayu, but according to the Rabbanan, what is the reason that they say Pidyon Haben takes precedence? Diyamar Kra, because the Pasuk says, Kol Bechor Bonecha Tifta, it says you should redeem your firstborn sons, V'hadr, and then only after that it says, Lo Yero Panai Reikam, don't come empty-handed to the Beis HaMikdash, and so therefore you see from the Pasuk itself that Pidyon Haben takes precedence. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabban and the rabbis taught, Minayin Shem Hayu Lo Chamisha Bonim Mechamesh Nashim. From where do we know that if a person has 5 sons from 5 wives, Shechayev Liftos Kulan, that he has to redeem all of them? Talmud Lomar Kol Bechor Bonecha Tifta. It says in the Pasuk, all of your firstborn sons you have to redeem, and that would apply even with 5 sons from 5 different women. And the Gemara says, Pshita, isn't that obvious? Bepeta rechem tola rachmana, the mitzvah of Pidyon Haben is dependent. The Torah makes it dependent on the opening of the womb, so of course it follows the firstborn to the mothers, not the fathers. And the Gemara says, no, Mao Detema, what might you have said? Neilif bechor minachala, that we should learn out bechor from inheritance. It says bechor by Pidyon Haben, and it says bechor by inheritance. Malahalan reishis ono, just like over there by inheritance, it follows the first of his strength. That means to say it's the firstborn to the father over there. So Afkan reishis ono, so too over here, maybe by Pidyon Haben, it depends on being the firstborn to the father. Kamash molan, and so that's what it's teaching us. It's teaching us that it goes by the firstborn to the mothers. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots. We said above, L'lamdo Torah, there's an obligation on the father to teach his son Torah. Minolan, from where do we know this? Dichsiv, as it's written, V'limadetem osam es b'neichem, it says you're going to teach it to your sons. Ve'echad lo agmarei avu, now in a situation where the father doesn't teach his son, Mechayeviu l'migmar nafshe, so he has to teach himself. Dichsiv, as it says, it's written, U'limadetem, we can understand it to mean that you have to learn if you weren't taught. And how do we know that she, the mother, is not obligated to teach her son? It says v'limadetem, and we can understand it in both ways, having to do with the teaching and the learning. We compare the two. It means to say anybody who is commanded to learn is commanded to teach. But anyone who's not commanded to learn, is not commanded to teach. Since the women are not commanded to learn, they're not commanded to teach. And the Gemara says, now how do we know that she doesn't need to teach herself? How do we know that women are not obligated to learn? As it's written, again, we do the same comparison between teaching and learning. Anybody who others are obligated to teach them, so they're obligated to teach themselves. But if you have others, a situation where others are not commanded to teach them, the person doesn't have to teach himself or herself, and so that's the same idea over here. There's no obligation on others to teach the daughters, and therefore the daughters don't have to teach themselves. How do we know that others are not commanded to teach her? Because the pasuk says that you'll teach it to your sons, and we understand that to mean specifically your sons, and not your daughters. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Hu lilmod uvano lilmod. Let's say you have a situation where he needs to learn, and his son also needs to learn. Hu kodim livno. He takes precedence over his son. According to the Tanakama, the father takes precedence over the son. Rabbi Yehuda says, in Beno Zariz umemulach v'talmudu meskayim biyado, if the son is sharp and he's able to retain his learning, Beno kodmo, so then his son actually takes precedence, he comes first. And the Gemara says, Kiyad Rav Yaakov Breder Rav Acha Bar Yaakov. It's like the story of Rav Yaakov, who was the son of Rav Acha Bar Yaakov. Shadri Avu Alakame de Abaya. So his father sent him in front of Abaya, meaning Rav Acha Bar Yaakov sent his son Rav Yaakov to learn from Abaya. Kiyasa, but when he came, he saw that his learning was not so sharp. So therefore, the father said to the son, Rav Acha Bar Yaakov said to his son, Rav Yaakov, Ano adifa minach, I actually take precedence over you. Tovat de'ezel ano, you return, because I'm going to go and I'm going to be the one to learn. Shama Abaya de Kohave Ose, Abaya heard that Rav Acha Bar Yaakov was coming. Havahu mazik be Rabbanan di Abaya, and there was a certain mazik, a certain demon that was in the study hall of Abaya. That if you would enter the study hall with two people, even in the middle of the day, have a mitziki still, it was a demon that would cause damage. You would still get damaged even in that situation, meaning to say it was a very dangerous demon. Amar Lahu, so he said to them, meaning Abaya said to the people of the town, Lo leisevle inish ushbiza. Nobody should host Rav Acha bar Yaakov. That way he'll be forced to stay in the study hall after the Misrachesh Nisa, and then maybe a miracle will happen, and he'll be able to defeat the demon. Al bas bahu be Rabbanan, so Rav Acha bar Yaakov, he went and he stayed overnight in this particular study hall. Idmi le kitanina de shiva rishvase, and this demon appeared to him like a serpent with 7 heads. Kol kriya de kara nasr chad reishi, and every time Rav Acha bar Yaakov bowed, one of the heads came off. Amar Lahu, he then said to them later, Amar Lahu lamachar, he said to them the next day, Elois rachesh nisa sakantin, if not for the fact that a miracle occurred, you could have put me in great danger. And Rashi explains, Imhaya beno zorez, if his son is sharp, v'avroashi hatzliach mimenu, if the father sees that the son will have more hatzlacha, more success than him, ve'ein lo sipuk nechasim sheyilmudu shneim, there's not enough money that both of them will learn, so yilmud beno, so his son should learn, v'hu yatriach achar mizonos v'yaspikenu, and he should pursue mizonos, sustenance, and he should sustain him. Bei Rabbanan, again, it was the study hall, Beis HaMedrash Rachuk min HaYishav Haveh, this was a Beis Medrash, it was far away from the settlement, and there was a dangerous demon, and so Abaya said, Lo leisev leinish ushpizal Rav Acha, nobody should host Rav Acha, v'al karcho yolin beVeis HaMedrash, therefore he'll be forced to be in the Beis Medrash, umitoch chasiduso yasel ones v'yarog es hamazik, because he's so pious, because he's so righteous, a miracle will happen, and he'll be able to kill the demon. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Lilmo Torah v'lisa isha, if a person has a choice either to learn Torah or to get married, Yilmo Torah v'yachar kach yisa isha, he should learn Torah, and afterwards he should get married. V'mi efshar lo below isha, but if it's impossible for him to be without a wife, Yisa isha, he should get married, v'yachar kach Yilmo Torah, and afterwards he should learn Torah. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Rav Yehuda says that Shmuel says, halacha, the halacha is, no say isha v'yachar kach yilmud Torah, he should get married first and afterwards learn Torah. Rav Yochanan says, Rechaim b'tzavora, you're going to have a millstone around his neck. He has all kinds of obligations when he gets married. V'yasok b'Torah, you think he'll be able to learn Torah in such a situation. And so Rav Yochanan says it's better to learn Torah first. But the Gemara says, v'lo pligi, they're not really arguing. Halon v'halahu, in one case we're talking about for us in Bavel, and in the other case we're talking about for them in Eretz Yisrael. And Rashi says, Halon v'halahu, b'nei Bavel hayu hochin v'garsin mishnayos hatanoim be'Eretz Yisrael. What we mean is as follows: those who lived in Bavel used to go and they learned Mishnah from the Tanoim in Eretz Yisrael. Now, because they were learning so far away from where they lived, they didn't have to take care of the house anyway. So no seisha, so they could get married first to have it below. Hear her, that way they won't be thinking of getting married. They'll already have a wife, and then they can go and they can learn Torah, and they won't be disturbed. That's for the Bnei Bavel, those who live in Bavel. But lahu, for them, meaning to say livnei Eretz Yisrael, for those who live in Eretz Yisrael, halomdim b'mekomam, they're learning in the place where they live. And no seisha, if the person's going to get married first, Yehu tzarche habayis mutal and all of yivatlu, so then he's going to have all kinds of needs of the household, obligations upon himself, and he won't be able to learn properly. So therefore, the Bnei Eretz Yisrael, they should learn Torah first. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, Mishtabach le Rav Chisda le Rav Huna b'de Rav Hamnuna. Rav Chisda was praising Rav Hamnuna in front of Rav Huna. The Adam Gadol, who he was saying that Rav Hamnuna is a great individual. Amar le, so Rav Huna said to Rav Chisda, K'sheyavu liyadcha haviyu liyadi, when he comes to you, bring him to me, I want to meet Rav Hamnuna. Ki also, when he came, Chazia de Lopar Sudra, he saw that Rav Hamnuna was not wearing a cloth on top of his head. Amar le said to him, I time lo prist Sudra, why aren't you wearing a cloth on your head? Amar le said to him, the lo nasivna, because I'm not married yet. Adrinu le'ape mine, so he turned away from him. Amar le, he said to him, chazi de lo chazis lehu la'api adinasaf, to see to it that I'm not going to see your face. I don't want to see you until you get married. Rav Huna told Rav Hamnuna he needed to get married. And the Gemara explains Rav Huna l'taime, Rav Huna was following his opinion. The Amar, because Rav Huna says, Ben esrim shana v'lo nasa isha, if a person is 20 years old and he still hasn't gotten married yet, kol yomav be'aveira, all of his days will be with sin. The Gemara says, Ba'aveira sal kadaitach, do you think he's really sinning? Ela'ema, rather what it means to say is, kol yomav behir her aveira, all of his days, all of his life, he's going to have thoughts of sin if he's not married. Amar Rava v'chein tana devei Rabbi Shmuel. Rava says, and it was also taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shmuel, Ad chaf shana yoshev HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzapa, until a person is 20 years old, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sits and waits, la'adam, for a person, masa isa isha, when is he going to get married? Kevan shegiya chaf, when he already reaches 20 years old, v'lo nasa, and he doesn't get married, Omer, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, tipach atzmosav, let his bones swell. At that point, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is no longer concerned with this individual because he did not get married at the proper time. Amar Rav Chisda says, Haida difna mechaveroi. The reason why I'm better than my colleagues, the nesivna b'shitzer, that's because I got married, I was 16 years old. We have a nesivna bar beisar, and had I gotten married at 14 years old. And Rashi explains, Chazir Rav Huna l'Rav Hamnuna, Rav Huna saw Rav Hamnuna the parasuda, that he wasn't wearing a cloth on his head, kederech hanisuin, like the way that married men would wear something on their head, shayu regilan l'chasos roshan. It was customary for them to cover their heads, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Amud Aleph.